So just who am I? So my name is Daniel Oh. I'm working for Red Hat as a technical marketing major as well as a developer advocate with a specialized cloud-native runtime like a Spring Boot and Quarkus and also JavaScript. And I'm spent a little bit more time recently integrate serverless and service mesh with the microservices application. And I'm also responsible for CNCF ambassador and give it more spend time help people to build their own cloud-native architecture and so on. Here's a few of my contact information. You can follow my Twitter and then my YouTube channel, Daniel TV, and then my GitHub repository. Just feel free and steal anything you want. Yeah, you can replicate any live demo and tutorials. So here's the thing, the idea came out when I talked a little bit about testing stuff, like a TDD, test-driven development with my lot of customer and actually enterprise developers. So I was more than, been around more than 25 years Java developers. And then, so here's the thing, the dev and production already some kind of big wall between them. So the developer already looking for like a fast way and simple way to stand up your application with the another technology stack. For example, here is a database. So most application, even microservices, needed to connect to your data store, like a RDBMS, like Oracle or PostgreSQL, even like a NoSQL database or a data cache. So one of the easiest way, maybe you can just install, or you can just connect to the shared data store somewhere your company provides, actually IT operation teams. Or the another easiest way, you can just pull Docker container image and running on it. But some of the developer cannot do that because the company policy doesn't allow you pull container image and running on your desktop. So there are a lot of limitations. So that's why a lot of developers really prefer to use in-memory database like a H2, pretty easy, and then no heavy resources you don't need to do that. But however, the production environment, they don't actually use in-memory database, like an actual database, something on bare metal or a virtual machine, even cloud, like a PostgreSQL, just like an example. So that's one of the reasons why you and your team and your CI/CD operation team or SRE team really interested in integration testing, reduce the gap between dev and production environment. But you might thinking about like a CI/CD pipeline, like a GitHub Action or Argo CD or a Tecton pipeline or even Jenkins stuff. And then if you wanted to use that kind of tool, maybe my job is just done when I finish my application code and then push it into my central repository like a GitHub thing. And the next step, someone from SRE team need to be take care of that. But if you could, as a Java developer, you can have some chance to reduce the gap, technology gap between dev and production with the built-in feature, like an out-of-the-box feature on Java framework. So today I'm going to showcase Quarkus Dev Services. Maybe some of them already have some experience. So what Quarkus is Quarkus is a new Java framework built-in 100% open source project and fitted in the Kubernetes native Java stack, which means the Quarkus design for container first and then fitted in Kubernetes infrastructure. So this is all about kind of stuff about the Quarkus thing, and the Quarkus allows developer to create cloud-native microservices, and you can say Kubernetes-enabled microservices, and then serverless application with the event-driven architecture and so on. So here's the interesting part. One of the most common practice for Java developers, and then they always need to have a CRUD capability, like create data and read the data and then delete, insert, etc. Then there are multiple choices to stand up your database. For example, PostgreSQL and MySQL and MariaDB and MS SQL Server, and also there are the MongoDB, like a NoSQL database. So Quarkus Dev Services enable developer to stand up this kind of image built on test containers. And that's not the end. So here's a lot of things with Dev Services, like a single sign-on for security matter, but not just security for your actual application RESTful API, but also you can secure your data with the HashiCorp vault as well. And then for distributed messaging system like a Kafka server, and then design your API strategy or API contract based on Epicurial, and process automation and the cache data like a Redis infinite span or lightweight messaging broker, etc. And Neo4j gives more chance to have more graphical database stuff. And more open source community project wanted to jump in Quarkus ecosystem to stand up Dev Services based on test container. So I'm going to showcase how it works. I'm going to stop rolling slide deck here and then stop my presentation. Here we go. So my terminal, and then here's several ways you can schedule your Quarkus project. Maybe if you are familiar with Spring Boot project, maybe you can think about, oh, the Spring initializer. So Quarkus provides the same experience. And then you can go to start coding, and you can have the nice web page here, and then you click on whatever you need, like a dependency. Also, you can say enterprise capability, the RESTful API, or data transaction, or cloud development. There are more than 100 dependencies you can plug into your Maven or Gradle project instantly. But today I'm going to use Quarkus CLI. It's a wonderful CLI. Maybe some people can tell me, hey, I don't want to use a new tool like a CLI thing, but this is really cool to me, at least, because I don't remember all long Maven or Gradle CLI command line stuff. It's just pretty short and then automatically complete that thing, but it's up to you. If you want to use a Quarkus CLI, you can go for it. Or you can go to Maven CLI or Gradle CLI. So whatever you need, you can use that tools. So I'm going to use Quarkus CLI today. So here we go. So everybody looks good. You want to make it bigger? Okay, so I'm going to make it bigger one more time, 2 times. Okay, so here you go. So here's the Quarkus CLI, and Quarkus create a new application. Let's say project name Quarkus-integration-testing. And the -x means I'm going to add extension, which is the same concept, Maven dependency. So here I'm going to add the JDBC, the PostgreSQL dependency, also Hibernate ORM, the ORM mapping. Also, there are the Panache is to make it easier for developer to add some of the stuff. For example, when you create like any Java beans, you need to get a setter, and then you need to define like a fundamental operation, like a find by ID or list all kind of stuff. The Hibernate ORM Panache actually take care of that kind of basic operation as well as get a setter thing. So you don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. And then Quarkus also provide RESTful API based on CDI injection, and then to process and consume and produce the JSON format data. I'm going to add a JSON. You can also use a JSON-B if you need. And I'm just created return this command line. It automatically generate new project with the Maven mapper, some of the Docker file. If you wanted to deploy this application to Kubernetes, and then some sample application. Let's go to change directory, and then I'm gonna open my application using any IDE tools. My preference VS Code today. So here we go. So all dependency automatically pull down with the library on my local file system. And then when you go to source main directory, there's one sample application here. So pretty simple, like a hello world, the REST endpoint, hello, and then the return text, the hello REST easy. And then here is the resource directory and the application property file, just empty. And now I'm going to go back to my terminal window and start my Quarkus application was Quarkus Dev. It's the Quarkus development mode, which around me have live coding. In the end, you can skip a lot of development loop. For example, you don't need to recompile, rebuild, repackaging, redeploy, and restart your runtime. Quarkus automatically do that for you as a Java developer, which means you just keep writing your code rather than inner loop processing. So once the Quarkus application running, and then when you, here is the under the terminal window, let's try to check it out, Docker process, and you can see, so let me try to stop, and then just to make sure, so Docker process will be terminated automatically, and test container will be gone in a second. Okay, it's gone right now, and back to here, and I'm going to run the Quarkus Dev mode. It automatically stands up your PostgreSQL container image as long as you have already container runtime, for example, Docker or Podman. How it works, because I already put in the JDBC-PostgreSQL dependency. So Quarkus automatically detects that dependency, and then there is no compilation empty file. Okay, let's try to stand up your PostgreSQL automatically for your microservice application. And then back to the terminal, and I'm going to sit it on in a new PostgreSQL just running, and test container also running. So when you press W from terminal window, it will bring the landing page of Quarkus, and then here's the RESTful API hello, and then here's one of the beauty of the Quarkus Dev UI. And then it showcases graphical all dependency as well as when you click on Dev Services, you can see the Quarkus set it up default compilation here. So you can actually change that for your app, the local environment, but I would just leave it all default compilation today. All right, and then back to here in the terminal window. Let's try to access to the local endpoint hello, and then as you can see, hello REST easy, just endpoint. And one of the good things is here is the interesting part. You can press resume testing, which allows me continuous testing capability. This is an out-of-the-box capability on Quarkus Java framework. So a lot of people, maybe enterprise architect or your developer team lead, keep encouraging individual Java developer or just developer, you need to have a test-driven development. You need to add your unit test first, and then if everything is okay, you're going to go back to your business logic and then make things work just like that. But a lot of people just skip testing scenario and they just spend more time to realize your business requirement because you don't have enough time, and it's pretty boring, and it's sometimes not worth. But sometimes you got some mistake. Sometimes that function is working on your local only, but you have such a nice, fantastic CI/CD pipeline, which means when you push that code, immediately that application deployed to production environment in a second or in 5 minutes. Sometimes it ruins entire system, the worst case. So the Quarkus provided that kind of stuff at the very beginning time. So here's the one test case just passed. When you go back to my project, and here's the test directory, here we go, Java, so endpoint hello, and then hello REST easy. So when you go to application, let's try to change the code, like a welcome to Quarkus session and Devnexus 2022, and then just save a file. And back to my terminal, you can see the error instantly, and then here is the test unit result. So the expected result, the hello rest easy, but you got an error because I just changed the return text. But the interesting part here, when you access the endpoint, actual your feature, you can have the new return text here. So maybe you can miss that part, test-driven development, as part of the integration testing. So Quarkus provide that kind of stuff at the very beginning of the development life cycle, which means you can reduce the like a human error or unintentional issue before you actually push this code into centralized container registry or source code registry. Okay, so in order to fix that problem, so you can actually change the test code or the actual application. But for that, when you go back to Dev UI, you can actually see the test result here. Open here, you can see the output on the bottom line, and here the test fail. And then once you click on that, and then your test scenario, and also here you got the same result. So you just change the code, and then the everything else, just Quarkus, make your life comfortable and easier. And then when you go back to project, and then go back to test, and let's say try to fix the problem, I just save a file, and then back to here in the terminal window, and you can see test just rerun, and all past is working. If you go to Dev UI, you can also see that you can green color, which means you're ready to go, maybe push your code into GitHub registry. That's all. This is one of the good things. And the fun fact is, in the meantime, I never ever tried to recompile, rebuild, and restart my runtime environment. I just keep focusing on developing application. The Quarkus take that off. So this is one of the live coding capability as well as continuous testing. So let's say, so I'm going to add the database capability just like we already PostgreSQL running on top of that. So go back to here, and then let's try to create a new file here. Let's say to person Java entity. So I'm going to set annotation entity. Let's make it cacheable. We'll make a high performance. I'm going to extend and punish entity and the public string, let's say just simple name. And then there's another one attribute, something like address. That's all. That's my Java entity bean. And now I'm going to go back to my RESTful API resources. Let's try to add two more RESTful API here. And produce and media type and produce the JSON format here. And then new API path. Let's say it's like a person and public return list and Java URL and the person type and let's say list all. I don't even define get or set on my Java entity. This is one of the beauty of the panache and the Hibernate URL and panache. And I'm going to return and then person. And there are already defined fundamental operation like a list all. So I don't need to specify or override that thing. So one of the good things of Quarkus Hibernate URL and panache, the actively called pattern. So that's it. Okay, let's try to add one more RESTful API. Let's say like ID and to retrieve based on ID, and then just return one person object and the method name find by ID and so parameter here path param ID and I think it's the wrong type ID. Okay, and then the person by ID here, and looks good. That's all. So I just defined two different RESTful API to access my database. And then you can actually add a new method to create the data. But I'm going to skip that. I'm going to not enough time today. And then see here's one more thing. I'm going to add like a prepared statement, like an import SQL file here, and like insert into like a person database table values and next ball and like a hibernate sequence and okay, then so my name is Daniel and address I actually based on Boston. Okay, so let's try to add a few more data here. So here's like a James and New York City, and here's Justin from Atlanta. Okay, that's cool. And back to here, and then here's an open terminal. So my Quarkus actually is still running, and then I'm going to access to person. Okay, I got a new data here. So it actually stored already database, my container-based PostgreSQL, and then try to like number one, is Daniel. Two, there is no content. Two is James, and three is Justin. It's really cool. So it's pretty easy and really fast, and it's that simple to have your CRUD capability on top of your application on Quarkus and then keep testing automatically. I didn't add even testing scenario for this RESTful API, but you can actually add that based on test-driven development. Okay, so let's try to, what I'm going to do next thing is just try to deploy this application to Kubernetes, like your production environment, because I already developed my database connection from my local using DevOps Services. Is that really working on my Kubernetes in like a production environment? Let's say, let's try to verify that kind of stuff. So today I'm going to use a developer Sandbox, which is provide Red Hat. So when you go to developers@redhat.com URL, and then there are developer Sandbox menu on top of that, and then you can actually sign it up for free. It will provide a small Kubernetes cluster for 30 days. And after that, you can actually re-sign up. And then you can keep using that. So you don't need to stand up. So for example, my macOS is just 16 gig. And then if I'm running on Minikube and maybe 20 different Chrome browser, and then some of the YouTube channel, and then sometimes it consumes more than 100% CPU memory. So this is really pretty cool if you test some of the stuff. And then I already signed up. Here is my project, and I'm going to make it bigger. So the empty project, the namespace DOH-dev. I'm going to make sure I'm going to dev project here, the DOH-dev. So now I'm going to add one more Quarkus extension, which allows me to deploy this application to remote Kubernetes cluster. So I'm going to use a Quarkus CLI, ext, and OpenShift. So this extension allows you to deploy application to just Kubernetes, and also serverless based on Knative, also OpenShift cluster. And then back to here, when you go to PalmXML, you can see here is a new OpenShift extension. And then back to the application. Now it's time to add DB compilation, DB kind. Here we go, and I think it's PostgreSQL. All right. So PostgreSQL, and then database name. Let's say person. You're gonna add a person here. Okay, and then the generation, maybe drop and create. And then username, user, and then secret, password, super secret. And then I'm gonna delete the dev. It's a prefix for Quarkus application. So when you define dev, this configuration only picked up by Quarkus Dev mode. So when you're packaging an application like a Maven packaging, the Quarkus one pick this up. So this only dev environment. You can set it up with a product prefix. You can only pick that up for Maven packaging thing. So I'm gonna just remove that because I'm gonna deploy to production environment and load script. Here we go, and import SQL file. Okay, so this is all database configuration for production, not my local machine. And then I'm gonna add more few configuration for Kubernetes development and deployment stuff here. Kubernetes deploy. Okay, typo here. Kubernetes deploy. Kubernetes. Here we go. Kubernetes deploy true, and also deployment target is OpenShift, and then expose route URL automatically to access the endpoint, and then also the SAP client trust certification for access the TLS termination. Okay, and then build strategy. Okay, I'm gonna skip this one. Okay, so I think it's good. There's 4, and then back to here, and I'm gonna use Quarkus build. I'm gonna speed unit test here. All right, so it will take some time because the behind the scenes, we're gonna go first to build this application as a jar file, and then containerize the jar file based on OpenJDK runtimes, and then push that image into external container registry, which is an internal container registry inside OpenShift cluster. And the last thing is Kubernetes actually pulled out that image into one of the available worker nodes. And then the actual container application will be starting. So there are a bunch of steps happening behind the scenes. The first is going to start the packaging application already. And as you can see, it's just starting deploy application. In the meantime, when you go back to here, let's try to add database because we're going to use the actual database and PostgreSQL, and then create a new PostgreSQL and person name and the username user, and then this is a super secret, and the database name also person we specify in our application profile file. Okay, so now we have a new PostgreSQL as a container. So make it a little bit fancier here, add label, and add OpenShift.io runtime equal PostgreSQL. Okay, we gotta have PostgreSQL, and now we have Quarkus here. Make it bigger, looks good. And then view logs, go find that. You can see the database automatically edited the data here, just like my local environment. And then back to the topology view, and then here is the RESTful API, and then copy that back to the terminal, and then try to access that like a hello, one of the example. Yeah, welcome to Quarkus session in Devnexus 2022, and the person, and then you can see 3 data, and the last thing is the let's say person 3 is Justin from Atlanta. So you got exactly the same thing, same result from your local to production. So maybe you can reduce some of the burden for integration testing based on natively built in the continuous testing stuff on Quarkus. So one more thing I want to add today here. So let's try to, I'm gonna back to my local environment and just just comment all kind of stuff, and then go back to my research. So let's say I'm going to add more security stuff because one of us InfoSec team guy just came to my office and, hey, Daniel, you got to secure your application like a RESTful API. Maybe no one access to your one of the RESTful API except for admin permission, something like that. It definitely will bother me, but I cannot, I cannot register that thing because of one of these company security policies. So let's try to add the security stuff here. So go back to here, terminal, and then I'm going to add another Quarkus extension such as OIDC, OpenID Connect capability, and extension add OIDC. And then you can see, so Quarkus runtime automatically restart and then bring a new capability here is the Keyclaw container image automatic standup. You don't need to install single sign-on server to manage your RBAC permission or authorization authentication. It takes some time to start a new Keyclaw server here. And then you can go to another terminal and the Quarkus process, Docker process. You can see we have PostgreSQL, we got Keyclaw server and test container. And then back to the application, and then actually go to Dev UI. Let's try to reload and then go to Dev Services. You can have 2 different Dev Services here. Automatically set it up. And then here's one of the good thing is the OIDC here. So the Keyclaw actually provided another nice Dev UI. So Keyclaw admin, and then here's the admin console, the default ID password admin, just for my local. And then when you go to here's another Quarkus LAMP automatically generated also. When you go to user, and the 2 user already created. One is the, here I'm gonna make it bigger. So admin, permission, and the other user, Bob, actually have just a user. So one user, test user, admin, as well as just normal user. The other one, user Bob, is only have the user permission, not admin in that case. So when you go back to my application, let's say, so the hello world last thing, so everybody can access this hello world thing. No need to any security permission. So let's say we're gonna access this person with a specific ID only for normal user. To do that, I'm gonna another the role allowed annotation, just a user. And then this though you can retrieve all data for only admin permission here. I just save a file. And then back to the here, and then localhost 8080, hello. And then you can access that because everybody can access the hello world. And the next step, like a person, and you got an error 411. You don't have any authentication authorization. And you can also remember that, but you can steal the authentication and authorization errors. Okay, and then in order to access that RESTful API, you need to access the token based on OIDC, OpenID Connector authentication flow. But a little bit boring and then not easy to way remember all kind of API to access, get an access token or request token, etc. So this is one of the good things. You can actually provide, you can have a Quarkus login page based on Keyclaw server. So let's try to access like a Bob, only user permission. And then here we go. Oh man. Let's try to Dev UI once again. And Keyclaw. OIDC. Okay. So I'm still waiting for the Keyclaw thing. Let me try to restart. So once we Quarkus restart, and then it automatically show that Keycloak UI as you just saw, and then it provides the login page to get your request and access token, and then you can easily test if your application and RESTful API is authenticate or authorized. So it's almost running, and back to the web browser, and then try to reload. Okay, here we go, Keycloak, and try to log in. Okay, so Bob. So now you can see your access token here and view ID, and then try to access hello, and then you can have the 200 just return code, which is great. And then what about the person like a 1? And then you can still the without error, which is good, but you can, if you try to all data, you got a error for authorization. And then, but it's not easy to figure out it's actually working. So to do that, when you go to terminal window, and then I'm gonna add one more small right and open API extension, which allows me to have the Swagger UI. Small right, and you can also add the GraphQL extension here. So I just edited RESTful API, but sometimes you're going to implement GraphQL, which is really a good thing. Okay, doesn't matter. Open API. Small right, open API, extension add. GraphQL. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. You got a good eye. Better than me. Okay. It's pretty cool. And it automatically restart the Quarkus runtime. And then once you got a new Swagger UI on your Keycloak, the API and the GUI, and you can go to the Swagger UI, and then you can check the actual RESTful API result with the access token. So let's try go back to here, and then go to Dev UI, and here's the Keycloak D. In the login, let's try to at this time with Alice. And now you got a Swagger UI and a GraphQL UI and open API, and then hello, and try it out, and execute it, and you have the right result here. And then try to person thing, and try it out, execute it, and then you have all 3 data result here. And you can also like person ID. So try it out. Let's try to non-exist ID like a 4. And then you got a 2 or 4, the non-content error. So it's really easy to get access token, not try to use the long Keycloak API thing. And you can also, in that case, you have already GraphQL API thing. Quarkus actually provide the Graph API annotation on top of your method, and it really exposes your application based on a GraphQL theme. So, and then GraphQL UI allows you have testing capability. You can just print your schema here and then just find out the actual result. I'm going to skip out that. All right, so one last thing. So I'm going to stop here. So people, a lot of interesting event-driven applications such as the connect to backend Kafka cluster, etc. So I already create a new project here. I'm going to open this project. This is one of the Quarkus project, and then here's the 2 sub-project here, the processor and the processor. It's a pretty easy thing. When you go to project, let me really quick go through that application. So this is just RESTful API, and then got us some new data and the random generated Java UUID, unique ID, and then send that UUID into Kafka topic. And then the processor here just consume that topic message and then generate new prices. So just say, okay, I'm gonna ask a new quote and then store with the unique ID in the topic in the Kafka cluster, and then the topic will, another application consume the unique ID and generate new prices. Just simple send and receive the event message from Kafka topics. And then it's a pretty simple reactive application. One of the good things is you can just add some of the annotation here, like incoming, which means I got a process and a consume message from Kafka topic, and then outgoing, which means I'm gonna sending message into Kafka. But also you can have like a messaging broker or just Kafka thing. It's pretty easy because the rest of your method just a simple Java method, just like a poser thing, like a process JSON format rather than pretty complex the reactive application thing. Okay, and then here's a processor, and when you go to application, there's an empty, and I also just edited in your POM.xml, and then here we go. So the messaging Kafka dependency is another detecting extension to stand up your Kafka cluster as a container, like a Dev Services. So let's change the directory processor and then run Quarkus Dev. And I'm gonna open new terminal window here. And then processor and then Quarkus Dev. So in the meantime, it's almost run. Okay, let me try it one. Let's try to Docker process here. And now you can see here the multiple containers are running. So Red Panda, one of the, really community project based on Kafka thing. When you open like a Docker dashboard, you can actually solve. Here we go. Yeah, this is Red Panda. On there. And then you can see this is a bunch of things. It's the Kafka stuff here. Kafka advertiser listener. And then back to the application. So go to landing page, and then one of the example here, code XML. Okay, I'm gonna request code, and then back to terminal, and you can see, so new message is just coming into Kafka topic, and then it's the server send type messaging process your browser, which means it's already generated a new topic based on processor. When you click on several times, and then you can find multiple ID automatically generated, and also process the create the random process here. Back to the terminal, you can find the multiple topic and so on here. So there are more. I already mentioned earlier. There are a variety of the Dev services you can use that, and then for testing environment. It's a pretty easy stand-up as long as you can have a container runtime environment. So I'm going to back to slide where, and then just summarize today's topic. So here's another use cases. It's the free ebook. You can download it. And here's the Dijon reference card for around serverless application development, not just Kubernetes, but also Amazon Lambda or Azure function and the Knative stuff. And then the left ebook is a Quarkus for Spring developer. There's a compare between Spring use cases and Quarkus. As an example, how to develop persistent layer, how to develop reactive application, how to develop RESTful API, and how to deploy cloud environment. This is a way how Spring Boot is working on it. This is the way how Quarkus is working on it. You can actually compare between two frameworks. And then I got a bunch of more than 100 technical demo video here. So here's a Binny URL, Binny, Daniel OTB. Yeah, just feel free to subscribe and then add your comment and anything around the Quarkus and Kubernetes and the cloud level application development and serverless. I got to touch a lot of experience and use cases. So feel free ask me and reach out to me Twitter and this YouTube and then my GitHub repository as well. All right. So one more last thing, at least we have a bunch of the Quarkus session in Devnexus track, the room number 312. As a reg, today, 6 p.m., we have a Quarkus party, just like we can give you any chance to become the Quarkus rockstar. As you can see, I got some tattoo sleeve, and then here's the rockstar thing. And then we got a lot of swag thing there. You can just swing by our Red Hat booth. There are a bunch of stuff. I mean, the wig and the hat and the wrist and then like a tattoo stuff. And then we gotta give you some chance to take the selfie, and it instantly print out nice high resolution photo. As well as we can send you. You can actually share that photo your Twitter or LinkedIn or social media or anything else. All right. Thanks for joining. And then any question? All right. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of Devnexus.